Hey, hey you. I'm just arriving at Hyde Park and Speaker's Corner. Well, I'll just give you a little warm up. Just a little kind of here I come. Some dude there wanting to catch me on film. Probably just in his way. Damn, I might have lost my connection there. I don't know. If I did, I'm sorry about that. Because that was a nice exchange with a guy called Alan. We argued over some bullshit the other week, man. Just good lesson for me, you know. I don't want to waste time on people who don't have time or aren't ready to hear this stuff, man. I can't fight the belligerent. It's just not going to work. You know, we got much more to do with those people that are ready to wake up, I think. So here we are at the growing flat earth thing. That's amazing. So the North Pole is in the middle? This is the North Pole and that would be the South, all the way out there? Is that what he's saying?
The North Pole is the center of the world. So it's not a globe like football. It is a flat. The geocentric wave doesn't move.
A flat and extending plane. Hey brother, how are you going? Good. I'm looking forward to some questions from you.
We are not allowed to pass here again. To pass this.
I like it. I like it.
There are military there, British military.
Remind me your name. Joseph. I'm Dave. I'm Dave. I think I'm live. I think I'm still live, which is cool. And we're in a place of debate. Hey, brother. Place of questioning and debate. So I'm going to.
Always around the equator. The sun is very small light, like small torch. One time give light to Africa. When Africa is evening, then day is in Latin America. When America is evening, it goes up. Then it's Australia here.
Australia down here, yeah. Well, Australia would be more here. Where's Africa? Here. So Australia would be here on the kind of typical flat Earth map.
As well, you can find it in between. It is opposite to Africa. So Africa, that side, Australia.
Yeah. Australia would be about here somewhere.
Opposite. Australia is here.
Well, I'd say more.
South of the equator.
Yeah, but more where your sun is, to be honest with you, my friend. If you look at the United Nations logo, you'll see a very similar map to the map that he's drawing now. So that's the map that people tend to think the flat Earth would look like. Because it kind of fits with the flight plans, it fits with sort of distances that we think we know.
Above Australia, Asia and Europe. So Asia would be here.
Pardon me?
And then Europe would be next to it.
Well, okay, I wouldn't say, like, we can't really get too panicky about the exact distances because even the mainstream globe models disagree on at least 3 or 4 key sizes. In the mainstream side, we'll say there's 2 is much smaller or bigger, where Greenland is huge or much smaller, and things are overrepresented or underrepresented. This is actually in the mainstream model, and they blame that. Sorry, go on.
Isn't the reason why they can't agree on a model and why it's all out of proportion?
Yeah.
Because obviously it makes sense on a globe. Yeah. Because on a globe, the proportions are right.
Okay.
Why is it that on a flat disc or flat plane, we can't agree on the proportions? Why is that?
Okay, I think it's because we've complicated by trying to wrap a flat map around a ball. Because actually, when you look at the globe, there isn't actually one agreed globe. Actually, I mean, the globes can be very different sizes. The amount of ice in North America, on the North Pole, in some cases, some old globes I've seen, it's just land, and in others now, in the modern time, it's just ice.
Yeah, that's again that scientific development. That's just
no. People were. I would say that for them to have drawn a globe, they had to have travelled. Don't you think?
Yeah.
So, yes.
Practically, is the Antarctic supposed to be everything else?
Well, we suggest that where the light doesn't shine, it's frozen. Where there's no light, it's very cold. When there's a little light, it's quite frozen. So if this model is right, and I'm not saying this is fact, but if it's true that the sun travels around and it's a limited amount of light, and I would say to you that light, in my view, doesn't travel infinitely. So it's a limited light, and it travels, say, 12 hours or half of this known Earth. And as it progresses through the day, it brings daylight or morning and leaves behind the evening and so on, and leaves behind darkness. And that actually, the thing we live in is actually just a dark, very dark place. And that's why NASA can't get up very high, or they can't take photos from very high, because it just gets darker and darker the further away you look. If you look at any high altitude very high altitude photographs, you see just darkness eventually. And that kind of makes sense. So this is like a torch shining down and just covering half of the Earth at one time.
So I'm not familiar with I'm trying to get my head around it.
Yeah.
Where is this? Are you saying the sun moves or doesn't move?
Oh yes, well everybody that I talk to, even those that believe in the ball, they always say to me inadvertently, they say, yes, well I see the sun traveling over my head. Well, we all see that actually, that's what we see, the sun moves over our head. And if you really focus on the moon as well and watch it like I have done for the last 3 years, you'll see that it's moving and rolling through the sky. You can observe the roll if you watch it. So you need to fix on a point, and it's a 24-hour roll, so it turns half as slow as your hour hand on your watch. But I've observed this for myself now. So yes, I'd say there are small lights, local lights. That's the primary theory, is that they're local, within thousands of miles of height, and size-wise, anything from 50 miles to smaller than that. Pardon me?
Who put them there?
Who put them there?
Yeah.
The Most High. The Most High. The Most High. We are of the Most High. The Creator created this so that we could have this experience, and it needed to have a system like a battery, a positive and a negative, so that it could recharge itself. The sun is a positive, the moon is a negative, and they work in harmony to create a certain amount of charge in concert with the earth, which is why we have electrical discharge between the roof and the floor. We call it lightning. But I say it's all an electrical system, and we created it. We created it for us all to come and have an awesome experience of. We are the creators, therefore there should be no government, no control, no religion, no nothing on top of you. We are the creators. You, my dear lady friend, are, like me. We are one, we know that we are one. Most people admit that we are one, even though they go to bed at night with their own little bit of separation about their color, or their religion, or their country, or their football team, or whatever. But actually, in truth, we are all one. And when we know that, and we know that we are created, there can only be one answer, and that is that we created ourselves, just like it says in a lot of the books. When God created us, He created us in its image, or the Creator's image. So I posit to you that yes, we are creators. I could talk on that for a long time, but that's a bit deeper. Look into flat Earth, look into the fact that there's no science that shows that the Earth is spinning. All of that was buried in the early 20th century. There's no way of proving that water can curve. I'll give you Suez Canal, 100 miles long, provably flat. Put 20 of them back to back, you could get from here to America, still flat.
I do have a question, actually.
Yeah.
Here's a question. If you look, do you agree telescopes work?
They do, but they don't work in the magnification that we told. I think that they give you like 50 times, maybe 100 times magnification. If you looked at a stop sign 5 miles away with a powerful telescope, you'd barely be able to see it. If you looked at a high-rise building from 10 miles away, you wouldn't be able to make out the people in it.
Okay.
So that's what my real-life experience of telescopes is. So I think that they're looking at things much closer, but because we're told that the light has traveled a trillion miles...
I'm not talking about in space.
Okay, okay, I'll let you go.
Do you agree that a telescope works on our planet?
Yes,
Yeah. Okay.
Plane.
Why is it on our plane, on our planet?
I'm having fun with you, my friend.
Okay, yeah. Either way, if you look far enough, why can't you see over the horizon? If it was all flat,
yes,
and you had a telescope that was strong enough to look over the horizon,
yeah,
surely you would see it. Otherwise, the only way to explain why you can't see things
it's because they've gone
away is because they've gone over a curvature.
Okay, I would suggest to you it's not the only way to explain that. I think more common sense answer now for me is that atmosphere plays the biggest part in how far we can see. And if you're in a desert and the air is very dry, on a clear day you will see very far. But if you're on a rainy day and it's cloudy, then you won't see very far at all. And that eventually, even on a clear day, you've got enough. Firstly, you've got enough atmosphere to start occluding what you can see in the distance. And then there is the thing of perspective. And that is that eventually, just like those people walking away from us, they get smaller and smaller. And let your mind imagine them walking for another 2 miles and you won't see them anymore. They will have dropped into the horizon. If they're holding a flag up, the last thing you will see will be the flag.
But if we had a telescope,
yes,
we would be able to see Mount Everest, wouldn't we?
Well, again, I don't think that we can see light doesn't travel. Well, light doesn't travel that far in this medium, actually. So when we take cameras up to 120,000 feet, we can only see maybe 100 or 300 miles into any one distance because
the other side of the flat Earth, bro.
We don't know. Well, how does water cling to the underside of a ball, bro?
And the edges.
How does water cling to the underside of a ball? There is no underside. I make no claim. Yeah, I make no claim. I make no. I don't know. I don't claim to know that. I'm just asking you to think. How is it possible?
I'll walk to the edge and go over. Is that right?
I don't know. Who says there's an edge? Who says there's an edge? Look into it, bro. Don't be frightened. Anyway.
Yeah. Some questions, but they don't want to be videoed. They don't want to be videoed.
It's awesome. It's awesome. Oh, you don't want to be filmed? Okay, you want to know who keeps the water in. Why does the water need to be kept in, sir?
Well, water is affected by gravity.
What? What? Okay, so but why does it need to be held in? Because in the typical ball Earth theory, water is simply held in by a magical force called gravity. There's no containment. You've suggested to me that there should be a containment because we actually know in truth, in our common sense, that water needs to be contained in a pool, in a pond, in a lake, in an ocean. And if there isn't a high rim at some point around the water, then yes, it's probably going to spill over. So I suggest to you that there probably is a rim, you know, but I don't know that because these things are not within my realm of knowing. I do know, I do know, well, let me say I try not to believe in anything anymore. I know.
Do you accept the fact of gravity?
No, in fact, gravity is not a fact because gravity is a theory. So I don't believe in the theory anymore, and I'll tell you why. I'll tell you why. No,
if a leaf falls from down there,
sorry.
What force do you think pushes the leaf from up there to down?
Pushes? No, I think that its density is greater than the surrounding atmosphere, so it falls. If it landed on a pond, let me finish. If it landed on a pond, then it would immediately stop falling, and gravity would no longer have any effect on that. And that's because it actually is less dense or less dense than the water. So it's actually to do with gravity. Gravity is all about.
So you don't accept gravity?
No. I accept that things have a density and a buoyancy, and in certain kinds of environments, they will react in certain ways. But remember that gravity was just a term that was used to explain why this thing is falling. Now, I say that when something is lifted up, it will fall. So there's an up and there's a down, and that's actually one of the laws of gravity. Because it has been lifted up, and it's something that has an equal and opposite reaction, right? You know that part of science.
So what's the equal and opposite reaction?
Well, the lifting up is the first part, and then the falling is the opposite reaction. No. Well, you can call it gravitational potential energy, but actually all it is density. Now, what they did, let me help you understand some stuff, that when Einstein came up with gravity, he had to abolish a thing known as ether. Now, the ether was known about forever, and everybody except... No, they may say postulated now, but it's made up.
No, there isn't something. I have a question about what you say is
flat, right? How is it? You say the Earth is flat.
Yes.
How about why, when I buy an airline ticket from here to Hong Kong, I'm going east. Then I buy another ticket from Hong Kong to Los Angeles. I'm still going east. Then I buy a ticket from Los Angeles to London, and I end up right back there. I keep going east. How do they keep going around?
Just like you just described it.
Yeah,
because
in I would be going forever, right?
Well,
how can it be flat and I end up back in London again?
The popular flat Earth model suggests that it's a North Pole in the center, and you're traveling either east or west around that North Pole. Now, what humanity has never done is travel south to north, under the ball, and come up the other side. We've never done that. We've never. Pardon me? Don't make excuses. So we've gone to the moon. Don't make excuses. We've gone to the moon. Can you not tell me that it's not? We claim we go over the North Pole all the time. Everyone's saying, "Oh, we're going to Russia over the North Pole." I would say they're going on the 70th, maybe the 80th parallel. They're not necessarily going over the 90th, but I wouldn't argue against it because if this model is true, then they could do that. But what they couldn't do on this model is go through the South Pole and come out the other side. Now, on a globe Earth, which is just 24,000 miles, 25,000 miles in circumference, we should, with our technology, technology, and our space station's up in space in, you know, superheated, super chilled conditions, we should be able to go around there. But excuses after excuses, what I used to buy. Right, I'm a 50-year-old guy. At 47, I used to buy the same bullshit you guys do, right? Right? So I'm suggesting what you need to do is a whole lot of homework on stuff that up until this age I didn't know. So the scientific experiments that were used to try and prove that Earth was spinning back in the late 1800s, early 1900s, sorry, the early 20th century, all of that science was the best science we had, peer-reviewed, and they couldn't prove Earth was moving. They showed that there was some etheric moving at about 3 to 5 miles an hour, and Tesla is quoted as saying that the scientists like Einstein are going around and around in circles with their theories, and they're not thinking in terms of waves and in terms of numeric sequence. So if you've looked into Fibonacci, things like this, then you'll start to realize that the science that we were taught at school and university needs complete overhaul.
Okay, now let's say this. You say the world is flat now, so if I keep flying east or west, choose a direction, it doesn't matter. When do I come to the end of it? It doesn't go to infinity, because remember I told you I ended up back in London.
Yeah.
So how far do I go? You said the circumference is 25,000 miles, right?
Now I would say to you that if you could head from London to south for 10,000 miles.
Buenos Aires.
No, that's not far enough, my brother.
Okay.
Now let me tell you that you're not allowed to go. You're not allowed to go beyond the 70th or the 60th parallel without permission. So what I would say to you is that if we could travel to the South Pole and any way we wanted to and do anything we wanted to, then we could answer these questions. But we're not allowed to. Do you know about the Antarctic Treaty? Do you know about the Antarctic Treaty?
You could travel to South. I've been to Antarctica.
You have?
I have on a cruise ship.
That's amazing.
I have.
But what degree of parallel is it?
You know what? I'll have to research that, but it's definitely beyond 70. Way beyond 70.
Okay, I wouldn't argue.
Way beyond 70.
Well, you were in an icebreaker?
Huh?
In an icebreaker.
You don't have to be.
You do. To go beyond 70, I won't argue this point because I don't know my facts exactly, but I will say this, that 70 is a long way from 90, and I know that flights are not allowed to go below the 70th unless you're on a cruise, and what you do is you go in and you come back out again.
Yes.
Which is something that you could easily do on this kind of model. Then I would say to you, you haven't answered really the question, is it possible to duplicate and actually have this model work?
The southern hemisphere with this thing saying basically it's the same model but upside down, right?
No, they're saying that it's all It's saying that it's all on a flat plane.
Okay, on a flat plane.
And that almost like an LP, the sun has burned a hole in the ice, and that's where we live.
Okay.
Beyond where we live, beyond where our sun shines, further south of 70th, 80th becomes less and less habitable. The further you go, and perhaps we've never been beyond 90 or 100 or beyond that. You know? So I don't know. There are a lot of clues about expeditions that were done straight after the World War. The Germans had gone down there with quite an expedition, and the Americans in operations, Fishbowl operations, I forget them all, but a guy called Admiral Byrd. He's the guy who went into there, and it's all quotable. It's all him saying, look, I went there, I flew 1,500 miles, I saw land bigger than America.
Could I just a basic question?
Yeah.
So all the telescope images, all the Hubble telescope images,
So I would say
they're all wrong?
Well, they're images taken from data sets, so they're corruptible, and NASA admits, absolutely. How can it not be? How can everything? If this is true, then everything you know is a lie, and it's being created for you to live under.
It's a widespread thing.
It's in fact every government on Earth is playing a board game called Risk, and they're in the game. It's a combination of Risk, Monopoly, and a few other of these board games where some few people basically control the game, and they've done so for so many hundreds of years or thousands of years that none of our generations know of it, know of the deception.
Has there ever been a chance where maybe one of the images slipped out? You know, you accidentally got an image of the flat Earth. You know, like what I'm saying is, if they did this conspiracy, they did a damn good job.
Well, the best photos that we've got of the Earth from the highest that we can get is 120,000 feet. 120,000 feet.
Scientific
So
knowledge.
go up as high as we can. Our vision is limited by the amount of light, and we can only see a few hundred miles in one direction or another. Now, what NASA does is they take data strips around Earth. This is what I used to tell people, because I was a proper NASA head, right? I visited all that shit when I visited America in '88. I was into the shuttle big time.
Just using my common sense, it doesn't make sense.
They take data. You'll know this too. They take strips like this. They go around the Earth, and then they stitch them together. They got a guy on YouTube, a guy by the name of Rob Simmons, talking about how he's the guy who made Blue Marble 2.0 that everybody knows about. And he's admitting that, well, what I do is I take these data sets and I stitch them together and I color in the blue because no one's exactly sure what color blue it is. Then I put in the clouds and all this sort of thing. He's creating it. NASA, for legal reasons, admit they don't have any photos of Earth. They have images of Earth, yes, as you said, but images is actually a compilation, a photo, a painting. This is where it goes. So if you, why don't you Google satellites in space? You won't find a single one, but CGI.
My friend, I can ask you, sorry, I don't know your name.
Dave. I got a YouTube channel called Trinity 4.
Except that I would check me out. One of the things that limits people from understanding what you're saying is the terminology that you use.
NASA lied you. NASA lied in the like an animal is farm, but we have more land. Guys,
By a long shot.
Because many other people say NASA lied already. Many people don't. This guy's saying about me, say NASA lied to you. This guy's really out. You did, back when you lied to him.
good. I say that to my teachers and I love it.
That was you, man. It's a multi-dimensional word.
You told me these are not Christians. They are all into money. They are all slave to the universe is being paid. It's not allowed to do. So I'm against both evil. Yeah. Found the yes.
The universe is constantly expanding.
And you said it doesn't talk
because that's what happened in the last 5,000 years. I'm a pedantist.
It's flat, nobody going to other side. There is nothing called other side, nobody going there. No, so when that's here, that's it. Him and me, we haven't reached there. No, I haven't started, no. Because it's very, no, the other side, there is go there. There is go there. Because that's my question. So where is Japan? Anyone says Europe, you know when Japan
if the universe is constantly expanding, and gravity pulls things together.
when Japan is in
Modern science, gravity pulls things together. Like the Earth, gravity pulls things together. The sun, planets are being pulled towards the sun. Everything, the galaxies being pulled towards the galaxy. Anything on the galaxy is pulled together. That's the modern. That's the gravitational theory. I'm not just saying. Wait a second. I'm not just saying that.
give us life one by one.
Wait a second.
I believe myself. That's the truth.
I'm not saying that's my view. If that is true, how is the universe held together? It's not expanding because it's expanding into it. By definition, if it's ever expanding, it cannot be ever expanding and be held at the same time. That's why, when you say that, when you say expected it's like actually it's not, the real answer is not really flat. It's not like it's not even that. You know what the problem is? We all speak in the dimension which is given to us by Western science, and that is that we see the universe, we see the satellite, we see all the planets, but the reality is the universe wasn't created artificially. If you go back and read the Vedic literature and understand how the creation was made, the whole universe is made of sound. And sound is a single-dimensional vibration, it's not a multi-dimensional vibration. And that's the reason why you can't explain my theory. You have to explain it, that if you start with the premise that you work on sight, then you are already limited, because sight is not the all-pervading energy in the universe. Sound is, and you can prove it in another way. People say that it's at night. You said the universe is full of nothing, it's empty. I said no, the universe is absolutely filled. It's super ether. Ether is not empty, ether is full. It's completely full. It's so full. We grow into the ether. I suggest that we grow if you can't, if you're afraid of ourselves, NASA sent probes to Saturn all this place.
Any questions?
How do you like go to North Pole navigation? North Pole, how do they go to North Pole?
North Pole is center of the earth. We have navigation.
No. What navigation? What navigation North Pole?
What navigation?
Yes. What navigation?
What?
So who will have North Pole?
North South Pole.
No. North Pole won't work. Go back to the ground.
There are only 5 kilometers round. They make the Google Map. 5 kilometers round.
Okay, so which degree is North Pole?
All the flights, they pass through North Pole.
Okay, over North Pole, inside the sun. The side. No. Over North Pole. Which is North? Center there.
We're not allowed.
Really?
What's the scope? North Pole is the center of the earth.
So South Pole is on what side? Okay, stand up. Center there. So when you drop your glasses, they will fall on us. Drop your glasses, does it fall down? Yeah.
And why is that the sun?
What is the formula of gravity?
No, forget
like you're going from the Cape to South Africa.
They're all lying, huh? And all these are all part of
Okay.
the how come about electricity in the world?
How come you don't have a Nobel Prize?
You'll find that no, actually down in Africa,
Not lying for you.
anywhere else.
I have another question. What would be the use of telling people that your egg is brown when it's actually what would be the use of that?
Well, that's the same question I asked.
Yes, there is use. I'm telling you, ticket so we're not going to ask for more time.
Usually important.
But they could just tell us that there's the end of
You know that line of I'm 47, 2 years ago, I thought I knew it. I wrote about my time in Tango. So I thought I knew you were. I'm more excuse past the Queen. You don't know anything. You don't know what you're trying to do. Can I please? Any questions?
القرآن ما شاء الله في كل مكان. هذه بريتن وهنا لندن يعمل قرآن. ما شاء الله.
I think that because water, in my experience, water always needs a rim. It always needs a bowl, a container, a pool, a lake, whatever. It needs to be contained. So I know that water, if it hasn't frozen and gone solid, it's going to have to run off somewhere. But I think more than likely it works like this. is that whenever the sun goes, it's warm enough to melt the ice. When it's melted the ice, it lands there. That's where we are on that less melted place. So it kind of works really well. So if the sun had a sun, the expensive along, it's only reached this amount of Earth. And I go around in 24 hours, I go around and I bring the daylight, and I leave behind evening and so on. And you can kind of touch the same thing in the same place. So then that works. But as far as traveling this way, if you're traveling up, let's say 10,000, 15,000 kilometers, by that time it's so cold and so frozen, even the military can't go. But the Antarctic technology, well, if we had the technology, then we would have flown underneath, or we would have travelled underneath. We've never travelled underneath. We've never gone this way around. We always go this way around, that way around, all day long. But have we ever done this road? And have they stopped us? The richest man on earth could not go down there and do what he wants because the Antarctic treaty prevents him from any of us. So he just asked the question that last week the man came here and told me that his brother-in-law had travelled from one side of South Antarctica round to the other. Thankfully, somebody who follows my channel, which is 24, went and looked into that form and he found that all the guys did was travel in a few hundred miles and come back. And this is all we ever see. People do a few hundred miles, maybe 1,000, maybe 1,000, maybe even 2,000, but we've never seen anyone get all the way around. And that makes sense, is that it just gets worse and worse. The further you go away from the center point, the further you go away from the source of life, and therefore the colder it gets. And that sort of follows our look. There are other flat earth theories and ancient theories that say there is land beyond the ice, and I'm willing to talk to those ideas with people who've already got the idea that water does not stick to the underside of anything. It will always fall off. There's many ways to get bigger and bigger and bigger. There's an underside. I know, that's the message. I don't make things. I don't make beliefs. See, the belief that water can do this is a belief. Because the Suez Canal is 100 miles long and absolutely provably flat. Right? If you take 20 Suez Canals and you put them one after the other, we can go from England to America and the water is still flat. Now you want us to believe that the water eventually is going to curve because I live on a ball big enough so I can't see it. Now, the whole of humanity, like 100 years ago, said, no, we're not sure it's a ball, we're not sure. The church is pushing the ball, you know, because the Big Bang comes from the Catholic Church, right? So they're pushing the ball, and everybody's saying, no, we'll find out when rocket technology comes along. But when rocket technology comes along, who takes it? The government. To NASA, and they use the German scientists, the rocket scientists, to lead their program.
Yeah, but they took us because they wanted them there. They took a look at ships going away from the land, and they
everybody brings me this question. It's a ship going over the horizon.
Yes.
Now look at those people walking down there. Can you see those people walking down there? Can you see them? Those people are walking on a flat piece of land, but they're getting smaller and smaller the further they go away. That is perspective.
No, they go, these ships, they're going away from the land, they go down, they aren't fading, they're going down.
Okay, the ships are going down. What is the formula? What is the math formula to calculate how much the water is going down, and you live on a ball where the water is always going down? What is the math formula for that going down? Do you have You do not know, because you were not taught. Because you were not taught. Let me tell you, because I have found it, and I will share it with you. When you know, and you go away today and you remember this formula, hopefully you will start to look at the world and go, shit, that should be 20 meters down. The formula for the curvature of the Earth, the size of this Earth, is 8 inches per mile squared. That means that over 10 miles, that's 800 inches of curvature over just 10 miles. 800 inches. This is Pythagorean math. This is what is given why it doesn't work, my friend, because there are no bonuses to be met.
You just going back to my original question. We buy a ticket from here to Hong Kong.
Yeah, follow this map. Go all the way around this map. This is the north. Our compass is always pointing north and therefore always pointing east. And around our compass. Where you going from? Oh, of course, you can be flat around. Well, if you were to draw this in math, you would put on a flat surface.
Going east like this. We're going north.
Think about it like this. Sea level is sea level. There is only one sea level on Earth. When I leave my sea level here, am I going to a lower sea level down there? And if I'm going to a lower sea level down there, am I going to go to a high level sea level when I go back?
Shouting. Okay, it's much easier to explain.
I mean, this guy saying I should tell you logically that we live in an electoral torus field, an energy field, and we're on the center plane of that energy field. Each of us are electoral torus field. Individually important, individually part of the creation. Everybody says the sun is what holds the Earth? Madam, what holds your Earth? What we go into the question, what holds your Earth? Can anyone tell me what holds your Earth? Space. Space was made up in a science fiction comic in the 1930s. Space is an invention of science fiction. Space, we've never proven space. I say we don't know. You say it's working on
and the sun is moving, and the ice. There's no space. What are you talking about?
Yeah, what's the land? Excuse me. What's the land? Excuse me. You're saying that the Earth is floating. If you look at the ice, I know it's a theory, but it's not a real thing.
Yeah. I don't think so. Ice is still ground.
Let's put the other planets. Are the other planets flat as well? Or are we just the only planet in the whole universe which is flat? Yeah. I'm sorry. I should have thought of that.
I just said there are no planets. I'll ask you tonight, honestly, look at Pluto, look at Mercury, look at Mars with your naked eye. Tell me what you see. What you see is a star. What you see is a star. They are just stars like the others, but they have their own track. They're on their own disk. That's all. They're called wandering stars. Are all the stars flat? They're just actually like stars. Well, actually, if you think of that, the astrolabe is a 2,000-year-old piece of equipment that is proven to say that the ancient cultures, they knew that you had a flat Earth, and then the sun, and the moon, and the wandering stars, and then all the astrology, all the astrology, they're on their own disk.
Are you hungry, brother?
I don't see the sun. The sun is so bright.
Water for you.
Give me some.
You know, but if they're stars, how big are the stars? Because if they were really big, then it would be too hard for us to live here.
Yeah, no, I don't think explosions of gas and stuff. They're actually just lights in water. If you look into something called sonoluminescence, go and look at sonoluminescence on YouTube. Go and look at sonoluminescence and see what we can do with sound in water. water, we can create vibrations in water that make stars. We can create patterns using a rice on a speaker that makes patterns that look like Mercury, Saturn, and all of these sort of things. So look into sonoluminescence. I'm asking you, I used to believe everything you do. I'm 50, and at 47, I still believe everything. My daughter is in university, and she still believes what you believe. Trust me, I know what you know. I'm asking you to look again at what you've been taught. Look again at actually just twinkle, little star. Now I wonder what you are. Now the stars you see at night are all the same. But NASA wants you to believe that it's a dry rock shining bright millions and millions of miles back to your eyes to make it look like a sun or a star. But it's just look at it with a high-powered camera, like a P900 camera, right? The guys who've done this, it's just regular guys like me, they don't talk about a camera. They've gone with P900, look at it, it's like, all you see is a beautiful light show. They're there, they're important, but it's just a beautiful light show, a little star, and I can't tell you more than that. But it's not planets. There are no planets. This is the center of creation. This is the center of creation. Right here. And they say, Asian cultures say that there was a tear in the roof and we had the flood. Yeah? They say that. I don't know that, but I'm willing to entertain that because I have an intelligence. Any questions?
Just lights in water. Okay. Why is this water called?
Oh, stop it, brother.
I think, you know, listen, when I was a child, I thought the Bible was silly because it said the earth was flat, right? And I told my preacher that, and I was proud of my anti-religious stance because I was like, the Bible says the earth is flat. Now I look at it again with fresh eyes. I'm not trying to sell you the Bible, but I say in the Bible and in the Old Testament and in the Jewish and other, in the Muslim faith, they talk about a rakia, a firmament, yeah? They talk about a rakia. What's holding it up? That's okay, so if we're in an electrical, remember, you can't think of this material, right? You have to think of this in an electromagnetic field. So we are not rocks and trees in the same hard way you think of things. So things are actually just electrical. If we had different eyes, science tells you that we can only see a nano fraction of the light spectrum. But if we had the whole spectrum to see in front of us, you would see me as a light being of God, and you are all light beings of God in them form. Each of you, like this tree, Hertzian photography, they will show you this tree is pulsing with light, right? And this is what I saw in my DMT experience that opened my eyes and made me see that there is a creator, and we're part of something much greater, but it's an electrical system, my brother. We are electrical, and this is electrical, so the roof itself, could be held because it's an electromagnetic field.
Every time we say, every time we say this,
because my friend, we are in the area of supposition, and I don't want to make too many suppositions for you to beat me down with. I don't really know, okay? I know that water falls from the sky at times, and I think that maybe there's some vents that water can come out from. I don't really know. I understand the way that water is meant to vaporize and come up and form power to eventually cool it, and then come down, either it's rain or sleet or hail. I know all the science of what we're talking about, brother, but I'm saying that I've looked at that, and by comparison to what I see with the flat earth model, I am much more comfortable. That's why I'm standing here bare, almost naked. I'm standing here almost naked. A true man come to stand here. I've got a 15-month-old son, as you probably know, that you know, I'm not with today, but I'm here to spread the love, to share this information, because I'm so sure that you need to know that you are the center of creation.
No, that is not true.
I know, I already know that.
If that's the case, there's no extrapolation. You don't even exist.
No, we are here, my brother, to have a reach. We are absolutely one creator, one humanity. That's what we are. And if you don't yet know that, it's because your government, your religion, your education, it was all well designed to rob you of that. I was a Christian man. I was brought up Christian, and I respect anyone who was brought up in whatever they were brought up in. But I now know that I and you are meant to have that Christ experience. Be the Muhammad, not to going to be under them, not to be labeled as no. Why is it? Why is it to describe why we have solar eclipses, why the sun goes around, why planets move? Why is it that all of that adds up and makes sense? But all of your things, all your things in your model, they just don't add up. You can't say, you say, hey, we don't know all of this, we can't prove all of this, we don't know exactly how this works. But scientists can say that this all adds up, this all makes sense. Why is it that the answer is
it's a little bit from this line, how much shadow and the flat earth, you need to read this one station.
Really 400 times smaller moon, including the sun. It should create a different effect. There are, I'm not a student, but there are guys who speak authoritatively that we know about the various times where the model is failed. And there's a number of well-reported times where the way that there's been built, both the moon and the sun, and there's a eclipse happening. They're both in the sky, and it's impossible for the Earth to eclipse the other one. And this has occurred all the time, recorded. Look at there are plenty of stuff that, and it's unfair to say that with all the science, has been paid in direction
except
the opportunities to understand some of the mysteries of it's not fair to put that on the news. Time and investment in order to get to what we want, but to help you along the way. It's more ancient cultures God bodies that exist in the sky. They might always want to communicate with both the sun and the moon. I give you the hey, how's it going?
Let's go, guys. For hundreds of years about doing it across the ocean, and that was the evidence of one of the proofs. Now with modern technology, telescopes, B900, it's German and bring it back.
That's a great question. Not all the way. I've been able to get to any naked places. Welcome back.
Yeah,
I love your question. Where are you from? Okay, I thought so. I met a German girl a few weeks ago. She was great.
What should be the use of telling people that they are aroused instead of telling them that it's flat? Because that doesn't make any sense.
It's a good question, huh? I have a few answers. One, maybe how do you land? Remember that in the 15th century, the Europeans were told about America.
The United Nations South Pole Convention was
1950. What?
The Convention for the South Pole.
The 1953. 1953 was the treaty. That's the Antarctic Treaty. So now, that's the one answer. That's the one answer. They could do that, and if I've been thinking about this for 2 years, I can see how they might do that in the Atlantic or whatever. Or some people say if it's flat like this, there might be more land beyond the coast. But my preferred answer at some point in our history, suppress your experience here on this place. So imagine if you were the creator of the board game and you wanted to go in and play the board game for yourself. But one or two of the players decided to sit in a dark room somewhere and try try and treat everybody. That's the rule. Find your own way to your but actually, this journey is meant to be about learning about yourself. Like whatever shit the system pushes at you about you made your own map here, that's good. Yeah, actually Antarctica is all around us. So we have a north point, north pole. So I remember it's incredible so-called I think that's what the religious is. Vatican power in the world. I don't really know where it all leads to in charge, but I do know that they want to keep you as a slave and they want you to spend your entire life thinking like you have to. Why do I have to do this all the time? What if your sovereignty is but seeking out not to become servants and assistants and having paid wages and you submit to like you must be this much. I've taken my life, I've taken a liberty now. I've had a child, I've got a child in university, another son, and then I'm a new boy. No diversity, no injection, no fucking nothing from the government. Total control of my own life and my child's life. The government wants to give that away. Bit by bit by bit. If you go to ask your great-grandparents whether they thought that this was a repressive government, that'll be just wet dreams. We are far more communist than those guys who think everything that we're going worse and worse in that direction. So that's what the whole mentality of you're just a monkey. You need a government to protect you from comets and asteroids and just magically like a dinosaur and you said, yes, humans will not take it.
I don't think my great-grandparents would have come this
years ago, he said it with his very much way of controlling. Hang on right, James.
What the fuck is behind level playing. We have already destroyed. Obviously, that makes up for the that's exactly right. And they put it in I'm willing, and as soon as my mother hasn't done any tampering during all the Russian months, is round, so head is, for example, planets and head is long. So planets is the mother's on the breast. See, the more we give away to the system,
you tell me, doctor, or you tell me, minister, what I need to do, then so like germs, adverts, right? Probably, I don't know, 5 lessons I watch, but I know that the germ adverts between this and that, alcohol adverts, and in the vaccine, what's a protein? I think always all the way down from and guys do go in, but maybe as well. So think about it like this: if we're on a flat Earth, this is where this is America, South America, right? And this is the Falkland Islands. You know where the Falklands are, right? And when the UK, they've got a base down here. The UK have got a base down here, and it's fucking freezing. They're all military. They don't know. Hold on. I'm just saying, you know that it's 90 degrees from the center to the outside, right? Do you know where this is? 72 degrees. We still got, no, 72 degrees south. We still got 18 degrees. No one fucking goes here. This is as far as we go, and if a guy goes on a tour and says, I've been to the South Pole, he's been about 100, 500 miles here, and he's been about there, my brother. So those cameras, well, I mean, let's say the environment or something you just buy. There's compelling stories from ancient cultures that in the southern summer, when the sun is down here, certain bits of it melt. You get a tip, there's land beyond that, but that's fair to me. I don't know.
Nobody's ever gone north to south and come back. Nobody's ever gone north to south and come back. I've never been there. Why don't they do it?
How about a couple of one hard more land, two to make sense.
It's a dome. They believe it's a dome. They believe it's a dome. And it is. And above it is water. Its space is water. So there's an edge. So why would they want to hide it from people that is not around?
Oil, mirage.
Maybe because the Bible and the Quran it didn't say it's circle. But then again, I believe the Earth is round. Because when you look at the planets, you can look at yourself as planets.